After the divorce, the ex-wife marries a billionaire with her baby and teams up for the ultimate revenge. From heartbreak to buried secrets, from vengeance to an unexpected promise, this is the story of a woman who found the strength to reclaim her life on her own terms. When Sophia Reynolds parted ways with her powerful CEO husband Nathan Carter, she never imagined the chain of events that would follow. Yet, fate had other plans, leading her into the extravagant world of an enigmatic billionaire, Alexander Hayes. What began as betrayal soon turned into a gripping journey of second chances, revenge, and redemption. Buckle up and prepare to be swept away as this emotional tale of resilience, hope, and the unpredictable twists of love unfolds. Sophia Reynolds stared blankly at the final divorce papers, her signature resting at the bottom in ink that seemed to echo the heartbreak within her. Just 3 years ago, she had walked down the aisle in what felt like a fairy tale wedding, convinced she was stepping into a lifetime of happiness with Nathan Carter. Back then, Nathan had been more than just a promising entrepreneur. He was a brilliant visionary on the verge of building an empire. She had fallen for him, not just for his ambition, but for the warmth she believed lay beneath his confident, composed exterior. But the moment his business took off, everything about him began to change. Late nights at the office turned into late nights at exclusive clubs. Sweet whispers of affection morphed into curt demands and bitter arguments. Their once harmonious home grew thick with tension until it finally collapsed under the weight of mistrust. The final blow came when Sophia discovered she was pregnant. In that fragile moment, instead of supporting her, Nathan insisted she take care of it, as if the life they had created together was nothing more than an inconvenience. Stunned and heartbroken, Sophia refused. She watched the man she once admired morph into a ruthless figure who valued nothing beyond the bottom line. That day, something inside her shattered beyond repair. With newfound resolve, she packed her things and left. She took refuge in a modest apartment in the heart of Chicago, not far from her longtime friend, Olivia Martinez, a single mother juggling her own struggles. As Sophia walked away from the luxurious penthouse that had once symbolized her dreams, she realized that her life would never be the same. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what she needed. News of their divorce spread through Chicago's elite circles like wildfire. Once hailed as the city's most promising power couple, Sophia and Nathan had now become a cautionary tale, proof that wealth and ambition could corrode even the strongest love. Most people had no idea what truly went on behind closed doors. They didn't see Nathan's manipulative control. The nights Sophia cried herself to sleep were the unborn child whose presence had been overshadowed by financial projections and corporate acquisitions. In a city that thrived on gossip, rumors painted Sophia as a gold digger desperate to cling to Nathan's meteoric success. She tried to ignore the whispers, but each cruel remark cut deeper than the last. Yet her priority was clear: protect her baby at all costs and carve out a fresh start, no matter how uncertain the road ahead seemed. Despite the heartbreak, Sophia found unexpected solace in her pregnancy. The idea of a new life growing inside her softened the edges of despair, replacing her sadness with fierce determination. She took on freelance writing assignments for a local magazine, focusing on human interest stories that resonated with her own struggles. The work allowed her to earn an income from the privacy of her small apartment, a sanctuary away from prying eyes. Writing had always been her escape. Now it was her survival. Though money was tight, every carefully budgeted grocery run and each piece of secondhand baby gear felt like a hard-earned victory. She didn't need Nathan's wealth to survive. All she needed was her own willpower and the silent promise she made to protect the life growing inside her. Meanwhile, Nathan's empire continued to soar. His company was praised for its cutting-edge innovations and lucrative partnerships. Business magazines hailed him as one of Chicago's most influential CEOs, a man with the golden touch. Each time Sophia caught a glimpse of his face on a magazine cover or heard his name mentioned on the news, a complicated wave of anger and nostalgia crashed over her. She reminded herself daily that walking away had been the right choice. The bitterness she carried was a constant reminder of the betrayal she had endured. What she didn't know was that fate was about to shift her path in an entirely unexpected way. On a bitterly cold Tuesday afternoon, Sophia braced herself against the wind as she stepped off the bus near Grant Park. Wrapped in a thick coat that barely kept the chill at bay, she clutched a slim folder of resumes. She had set her sights on a research assistant position at the Chicago Historical Society. Though her freelance work was fulfilling, the pay was unpredictable, and with her baby's due date inching closer, she needed something more stable. She had no idea that a single encounter that day would change the course of her life forever. She needed a steadier income. As she carefully navigated the slick sidewalk, she nearly collided with a tall, striking man stepping out of a sleek black luxury sedan. Her heart lurched in momentary panic, but she caught herself just in time, murmuring an apology. He greeted her with a subtle smile, his deep green eyes radiating warmth. It was only after he walked away that she realized she had recognized him. Alexander Hayes, the reclusive billionaire philanthropist whose recent charitable donations had dominated national headlines. His name was synonymous with wealth and secrecy. Once a relentless dealmaker known for his cutthroat business strategies, he had seemingly changed in recent years, softened, some said, by personal tragedy. Yet, as he paused to help Sophia steady herself on the icy pavement, she was caught off guard by how down-to-earth he seemed. Nothing like the distant, larger-than-life figure the tabloids had painted him to be. "Are you all right?" he asked, his deep voice carrying a quiet concern. Flustered, Sophia nodded, feeling an odd sense of reassurance from a man she barely knew. She murmured her thanks and moved on, determined to focus on her job hunt rather than dwell on an unexpected, albeit intriguing, encounter with a billionaire. But fate had other plans. Minutes later, as she climbed the icy steps leading to the Chicago Historical Society, her foot slipped. She flailed for balance, bracing for what would surely be a painful fall. Instead, she felt strong arms catch her just in time. Heat rushed to her cheeks as she turned to see none other than Alexander Hayes. "Well," he said, amusement glinting in his eyes, "we really must stop meeting like this." Embarrassed and still shaken from the near fall, Sophia mumbled a polite thanks. Twice now, she had been saved by the same man in the span of minutes. Ever the gentleman, Alexander asked if she needed any further help, his gaze briefly flickering to her expectant figure. Despite her pride, something about his sincerity disarmed her. When he learned she was applying for a research role at the Historical Society, he casually mentioned his philanthropic ties to the institution. He had donated a significant sum for its recent renovations and offered to introduce her to the curator. Sophia hesitated, torn between pride and practicality. She had sworn to never rely on powerful men again, but the opportunity was too great to dismiss. Swallowing her reservations, she accepted, quietly reminding herself that it was just an introduction, nothing more, no strings attached. Inside the stately marble foyer of the Historical Society, everything was about to change. Alexander greeted Dr. Benjamin Whitmore, the curator. Dr. Whitmore's eyes lit up upon seeing the billionaire, but they widened further when Alexander introduced Sophia as a talented researcher and writer. Though caught off guard, the curator seemed intrigued as he skimmed through Sophia's freelance portfolio. He carefully reviewed her credentials before asking her to leave her resume. While he made no immediate promises, he assured her that he would be in touch soon. As they stepped outside, Alexander handed Sophia his business card. "Call me if you need anything," he said casually, "or just to let me know how things work out." She slipped the card into her pocket, feeling an odd mix of gratitude and confusion. Would she ever see this mysterious, generous man again? Something told her their paths had only just begun to intertwine. A week after her unexpected meeting with Alexander, Sophia's phone buzzed while she struggled with the waistband of her increasingly snug maternity jeans. To her surprise, Dr. Whitmore was on the other end. He offered her a part-time position at the Historical Society, digitizing archives, drafting short articles for exhibitions, and assisting with ongoing research. The hours were limited, but the steady pay gave her a much-needed sense of security. As she hung up, her gaze drifted toward the small business card resting near the kitchen sink. Alexander Hayes' card. She had hesitated to reach out, wary of seeming presumptuous. A quiet voice inside warned her about powerful men and the ways they could upend a woman's life. But she couldn't ignore his kindness. nor the way he had looked at her, as though her well-being truly mattered. Acting on impulse, she dialed his number. He answered almost instantly, greeting her by name as if he had been waiting for the call. She thanked him for the introduction, explaining that she had been offered the job. To her surprise, Alexander sounded genuinely pleased, and before she could overthink it, she accepted his invitation to lunch the following day. He suggested a quiet little bistro near the Chicago River, far from the usual corporate crowd. Though nervous about what it might mean, Sophia's curiosity got the better of her. A friendly lunch was harmless, she reasoned. It wasn't as if she was stepping into anything romantic. The bistro had an intimate charm, with exposed brick walls adorned with black and white photographs of Chicago's rich history. When she arrived, Alexander was already seated by the window, a small bouquet of fresh daisies on the table in front of him. "These are for you," he said, his voice warm, "and for the baby." A gentle smile curved his lips, and something in Sophia's chest softened. Over steaming bowls of creamy tomato soup, they talked. They talked about everything, from the intricacies of historical architecture to Alexander's philanthropic initiatives. Sophia couldn't help but notice how different he was from Nathan. Where Nathan had always dominated conversations, eager to prove his brilliance, Alexander listened. He asked about her life, her passions, and how she was coping with her pregnancy. She found herself opening up more than she intended, sharing her uncertainties about the future, her modest freelance gigs, and her fierce determination to build a loving home for her child. Still, whenever thoughts of Nathan surfaced, she hesitated. The wounds of her marriage were still raw, and she wasn't ready to peel them open in front of a man she had only just met. Whether Alexander sensed her discomfort or simply understood the value of patience, he never pressed. Whenever shadows flickered across her expression, he effortlessly steered the conversation toward something lighter. By the end of lunch, Sophia felt lighter, as if, for the first time in a long while, she wasn't carrying the weight of her past alone. When they stepped outside into the crisp winter air, Alexander turned to her with a quiet sincerity. "If you ever need anything," he said softly, "or even if you just want to talk, I'm here." She clutched the bouquet of daisies to her chest, their warmth lingering long after his sleek car disappeared down the street. In the weeks that followed, Sophia poured herself into her new responsibilities at the Historical Society. Her work ranged from sorting through dusty archival boxes to drafting short write-ups about the city's early architecture. Despite the low pay, she cherished the steady rhythm, the sense of purpose it gave her. With each page she flipped through and each artifact she cataloged, she saw how every moment in history was a story, an echo left behind by those who had once struggled, hoped, and survived. She clung to that thought, reminding herself that her own hardships were merely a chapter in a much longer narrative. During this time, she exchanged light-hearted texts with Alexander, discussions about upcoming museum exhibits, historical oddities, and community fundraisers. Each message felt like a small but precious thread, quietly weaving them closer together. As winter's frost gradually melted into the promise of spring, Sophia allowed herself a tiny spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, life was steering her toward a future where heartbreak was not the end of her story, but rather the beginning of something new. One bright afternoon, Sophia sat alone in the Historical Society's archive room, carefully handling a fragile antique map when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the caller ID. Her stomach twisted. Nathan Carter. Ever since signing the divorce papers, their contact had been minimal and strictly formal. Her initial instinct was to ignore the call, but against her better judgment, she found herself answering. The moment she heard Nathan's composed, businesslike tone, memories crashed over her like a cruel wave. "Sophia," he began, "we need to discuss the baby. I've consulted with my legal team, and we need to establish a suitable arrangement." Her heart pounded in her chest. For months, she'd prepared herself to raise this baby alone. Never once had she imagined that Nathan would suddenly want to be involved. Why now? After he had dismissed her so coldly before? Keeping her voice steady, she told him that she was doing just fine on her own. She neither needed nor wanted his financial help, and if he planned to be emotionally absent, she preferred he stay out of their child's life altogether. But Nathan's next words sent a chill down her spine. "I'm not asking you to get back together," he clarified, "but I can't afford for the media or my investors to believe I'm neglecting my responsibilities. My board expects me to address this." His callous frankness cut deeper than any insult ever could. In that moment, the truth became painfully clear. This wasn't about fatherly love. This was about image control, damage management. The conversation ended in a tense standoff, with Nathan implying that his lawyers would handle the next steps. Sophia stepped outside, her hands shaking. She pressed her back against the cold brick wall of the Historical Society's building, struggling to catch her breath. She felt violated, as if her pregnancy had been reduced to nothing more than a bargaining chip in yet another one of Nathan's corporate maneuvers. Later that night, as she attempted to focus on writing a freelance article, her thoughts kept drifting back to Alexander. He had told her to reach out if she ever needed help. But could she really bring him into something so personal? They shared a budding friendship, maybe even something deeper, but it still felt too soon to drag him into the chaos of her conflict with Nathan. Still, the idea of facing Nathan's legal onslaught alone made her tremble. After hours of inner turmoil, she finally gave in. She texted Alexander. "Something urgent came up. Can we talk?" The phone rang almost immediately. His voice, calm and concerned, was like a lifeline. She took a deep breath and began to explain. As she haltingly recounted Nathan's demands, she felt hot tears slip down her cheeks, tears of frustration, of exhaustion, of fear. Alexander listened in silence, only interrupting when he needed clarification. And when she was finished, he spoke with steady resolve. "You're not alone," he assured her. "I know one of the best family lawyers in Chicago. I'll set up a meeting immediately." Lawyer in Chicago. Someone who wouldn't be intimidated by high-powered executives. As reluctant as she was to rely on anyone, Sophia felt her reservations slowly melting in the face of Alexander's genuine concern. She agreed, a surge of gratitude washing over her, blended with the flicker of guilt. She had promised herself she would never put her trust in a powerful man again. Yet, Alexander's steady reassurance comforted her in a way she hadn't realized she desperately needed. Hanging up, she felt like she was stepping onto a precarious tightrope, unsure if she would reach the other side unscathed. Alexander wasted no time arranging a meeting with Charlotte McKenna, a highly regarded family law attorney known for taking on and winning against powerful adversaries. The next day, Sophia arrived at Charlotte's elegant, modern office, its walls lined with law books and abstract art. With calm authority, Charlotte laid out the legal landscape. "Nathan can assert his paternal rights, but he cannot force you to accept financial support," she explained. "However, if he legally establishes paternity, he could petition for visitation or even shared custody." Sophia's stomach twisted at the thought. The last thing she wanted was for her child to become a PR stunt, a tool for Nathan to manipulate public perception. Yet Charlotte's composed demeanor provided a sliver of comfort. "I will protect your interests," the attorney promised. "We can fight for sole custody if it comes to that." When Sophia stepped out of the office, she was surprised to find Alexander waiting for her in the corridor. A soft sense of relief washed over her. She told him that Charlotte seemed confident, but admitted that the legal complexities were overwhelming. "I'm just glad you have strong representation," Alexander said gently, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then, with his usual quiet ease, he suggested they grab a quick coffee at a nearby cafe. Over steaming cups of cappuccino, Sophia found herself confiding in him more than she expected. She spoke of her fears, Nathan's manipulations, the terrifying possibility of losing control over her child's future, and the unsettling feeling that her life was slipping beyond her grasp. Alexander listened quietly, his brow furrowed in thought. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm and steady. "I know how isolating it feels to go up against someone who holds that much power," he said. "But I promise you, Nathan's influence doesn't extend everywhere. You have rights, and you have people who will stand by you." His sincerity chipped away at the walls she had built around herself. And in that moment, she realized with a quiet shock, she was starting to trust him. And that realization was both terrifying and exhilarating. The following weekend, Alexander invited Sophia to a children's hospital charity gala he was sponsoring. You can see more of what I do, he said, almost shyly. Nerves fluttered in her stomach. She wasn't sure how she would fit into the high society circles that had once revolved around Nathan. Nonetheless, there was something about Alexander's openness that compelled her to say yes. That Saturday, she agonized over what to wear before settling on a simple black dress she had worn to a friend's wedding years ago. Standing in front of her mirror, she smoothed the fabric over her pregnant belly. For a fleeting moment, she considered backing out, afraid she would feel out of place. Then, a text from Alexander appeared on her phone. "I'm downstairs. No rush." Something about those words propelled her forward. They arrived at the grand ballroom of the Drake Hotel, where glittering chandeliers cast a warm glow over the polished marble floors. Alexander introduced Sophia to business leaders, doctors, and philanthropists, speaking highly of her passion for historical research. To her surprise, they were far more interested in her work and insights than in her past. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen, not as Nathan Carter's ex-wife, not as a scandal-ridden story, but as her own person. At one point, as a soft waltz played, Alexander extended his hand. "Dance with me?" She hesitated for only a moment before placing her hand in his. They moved slowly to accommodate her growing belly, and to her surprise, Sophia felt something entirely unfamiliar in these circles, an unexpected sense of belonging. Away from the swirling crowd, they eventually slipped onto a private balcony, the city lights illuminating the intensity in Alexander's gaze. "I can't pretend to understand everything you've been through," he said quietly. "But I do know that you deserve better. You're strong, devoted, and you make me want to be better, too." Sophia's breath caught. His words were gentle, honest, devoid of any hidden agenda. He wasn't offering her a way out. He wasn't trying to control her. He simply cared. Then came the words that left her completely undone. "I want to be a part of your life, and your baby's life, if you'll have me." A tsunami of emotions crashed over her. Fear, gratitude, disbelief. She swallowed hard before offering the only response she could. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I need time to think." Alexander nodded, his expression unwavering. With a tender smile, he drew her into a soft embrace beneath the glittering Chicago skyline. In the days that followed, Sophia couldn't shake the warmth of his arms, the sincerity in his voice. And yet, the ghosts of her past refused to let her rest. She remembered how she had once believed in Nathan's promises of love, of devotion, only for him to discard her the moment his career soared. Now, here she was again, with another powerful man offering her a future. Was she repeating her mistakes, or had she found someone truly different? She continued coordinating with Charlotte McKenna on her legal case, but no matter how busy she tried to keep herself, she couldn't escape the question weighing on her heart. Charlotte intensified the legal battle against Nathan's attempts to control the narrative. Tensions escalated when his attorneys demanded a paternity test and hinted at subpoenaing Sophia's medical records. Day after day, phone calls and emails rattled her nerves. She tried to stay strong for the baby's sake, but the stress was relentless, creeping into her thoughts, invading her dreams. One afternoon, after leaving Charlotte's office, Sophia stepped outside, exhausted and overwhelmed. As she reached for her phone, she noticed a missed call from Alexander. She returned it, pressing the phone to her ear, bracing herself. His voice, calm and resolute, was an immediate balm to her fraying nerves. "I'm here," he said simply. "We'll face this together." She clung to those words like a lifeline. Then, as if orchestrated by fate, an old friend reached out. Olivia Martinez, the same friend who had helped Sophia find her modest downtown apartment, worked as an assistant event planner. Her voice was low and tense as she spoke. "I just found out I'm working a high-profile corporate gala," she admitted. "Nathan's company is hosting it." A pause, and he specifically asked if you'd be attending. Sophia's stomach twisted. Why would Nathan want her there? It had to be a PR move, a carefully staged opportunity to present a united front, to control the public perception of their story. Olivia's concern was clear. "I just thought you should know," she warned, her voice serious. "Watch your back." That evening, Sophia recounted the news to Alexander. He listened in silence, his brow furrowed in thought. Then, after a moment, he surprised her. "You should go." She blinked. "What?" "He's expecting you to stay away, or worse, to show up alone and vulnerable." Alexander leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. Show him you're not under his control, and you won't be alone. I'll be there. Nervous energy buzzed through her. The idea of walking into Nathan's world, visibly pregnant with his child and on the arm of another powerful man, was both terrifying and exhilarating. Maybe this was exactly what she needed, to prove to herself and to Nathan that she would no longer be silenced. The night of the gala arrived in a blur of nerves. Sophia settled on an elegant emerald green gown that draped beautifully over her pronounced belly. She refused to hide the reality of her pregnancy. When Alexander arrived in a limousine, his usual warm smile was replaced by a quiet intensity. Outside the Grand Hotel, reporters swarmed, camera flashes flickering like fireflies in the night. As whispers filled the air, Alexander rested a protective hand on her lower back, guiding her through the crowd with quiet assurance. Inside, the ballroom shimmered with golden chandeliers and polished marble floors. And there, at the center of the room, stood Nathan Carter. Surrounded by corporate admirers, their gazes locked the moment Sophia entered. The tension was instant, electric, and the battle had just begun. Sophia steeled herself, refusing to shrink under Nathan's gaze. She could feel the weight of curious stares on her back, some recognizing her from her days as Nathan Carter's wife, others whispering about the obvious pregnancy. But with Alexander beside her, she found it easier to breathe. He guided the conversation skillfully, steering introductions toward her work and achievements, rather than the scandalous rumors still lingering in the air. Yet, from the corner of her eye, she saw Nathan prowling through the crowd, effortlessly charming investors, his laughter polished and practiced. Sophia fought to maintain her composure. She would not appear timid. She would not let him see an ounce of doubt in her. Eventually, he approached. A wine glass in hand, he nodded curtly at Alexander before turning his attention to her. "You look radiant," Nathan said, his voice smooth, but the tension beneath it was unmistakable. Sophia barely had time to respond before she felt Alexander subtly shift beside her, a silent but unmistakable display of support. Nathan's lips pressed into a tight line. "We need to talk, privately." Sophia hesitated but ultimately agreed. A public confrontation would accomplish nothing. In a quiet corridor, Nathan wasted no time. "The board knows about your pregnancy," he said, his tone sharp and calculated. "They expect me to handle the situation." Sophia crossed her arms. "And what exactly does that mean?" "I'm prepared to offer financial support, generous support." His eyes met hers, cold and unreadable. "In exchange for your cooperation." Her stomach twisted. There it was, the truth. This wasn't about their child, it was about damage control, keeping his reputation intact. Anger burned through her, but she kept her voice steady. "I already have legal representation," she said firmly, "and I won't sell my child's rights for the sake of your corporate convenience." Nathan's mask of composure cracked. A flicker of fury flashed in his eyes. "Don't mistake my willingness to negotiate for weakness," he warned, voice low. "I have the means to make this complicated for you." Sophia lifted her chin, summoning every ounce of strength she had. "Do what you must," she said coolly. "I won't be bullied anymore." She turned on her heel, adrenaline surging through her veins. As she stepped back into the ballroom, Alexander was already waiting. Without a word, he slipped an arm around her, his presence a quiet shield against the tension still simmering in the air. They stayed for the rest of the gala, refusing to flee in defeat. And when the final speech concluded, they slipped out a side door, leaving the flashing cameras, whispered gossip, and Nathan Carter's lingering threat behind them. The confrontation had rattled her, but it had also solidified something deep within her. She wasn't afraid of him anymore. She was no longer the naive girl who had once cowered in Nathan's shadow. She was stronger now, fueled by the knowledge that she wasn't standing alone. She had people who genuinely had her back: Alexander, Charlotte, Olivia. Tensions escalated in the wake of the gala. Within days, Nathan's lawyers filed paperwork requesting shared custody upon the baby's birth, citing his paternal rights. Charlotte responded immediately, constructing a counterclaim for full custody, supported by documentation of Nathan's emotional neglect and manipulative behavior. Each legal filing added to Sophia's anxiety, looming over her like a storm cloud in an otherwise clearing sky. Through it all, Alexander remained a steady presence. He joined her at prenatal checkups, helped her navigate health insurance details, showed up quietly and consistently, whether it was to drive her to the grocery store or simply to sit with her on particularly anxious nights. And then, one morning, he arrived at her apartment with a determined look in his eyes. "You need a break," he said. They drove out of the city, toward Lake Michigan's shoreline, away from court documents, media speculation, and the suffocating weight of Nathan Carter's influence. At a secluded beach, with gentle waves lapping at the shore, Sophia kicked off her shoes and let the cool sand press between her toes. And for the first time in a long time, she let herself breathe. As they walked, she confessed things she hadn't spoken aloud before. How she had once dreamed of a picturesque life with Nathan, traveling the world, raising a child in a warm and loving home. How she felt guilty. Guilty for not recognizing who Nathan truly was sooner. Guilty for believing in something that had never really existed. "Maybe it means there's something wrong with me," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Alexander stopped, turning to face her, the lake breeze tussling his dark hair. "Your past doesn't define you," he said with quiet conviction. "What matters is who you choose to be now." They shared a makeshift picnic, sandwiches, fresh fruit, the soft hush of the waves forming their own background melody. Then, as the sun dipped lower in the sky, Alexander finally broached the subject that had lingered between them since the gala. "I can't stop thinking about a future with you," he admitted, his gaze shifting briefly to her belly before meeting her eyes again. "Both of you." Sophia's heart thudded. She had suspected the depth of his feelings, but hearing him say it aloud made it all feel more real. "Alexander, she swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "It's not that I don't feel something for you. I do. But I'm terrified." "Of what?" "Of making the same mistake again." Alexander's gaze was steady, unwavering. "Love is a risk," he said gently. "But it's one I want to take, if you'll let me." A flutter of hope stirred inside her, a hesitant, fragile dance between fear and trust. Maybe, just maybe, this was different. But life had a way of throwing unexpected curveballs, and the next one was coming. A week later, while Sophia was folding freshly bought baby clothes, her phone rang. The voice on the other end was somber. It was a doctor from a local hospital. Nathan Carter was in a serious car accident, the doctor informed her. "He's stable, but he's suffered multiple fractures, and he's asking for you." Sophia's mind reeled. A wave of emotions crashed over her. Anger, betrayal, and something more complicated. She had spent months despising this man, and yet the thought of him lying in a hospital bed, broken and vulnerable, stirred something deep within her. She told Alexander. Without hesitation, he offered to drive her to the hospital. Despite her tangled emotions, something inside her insisted that she needed to see Nathan, needed closure. This final confrontation had been a long time coming. The hospital smelled of antiseptic. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, heightening the tension twisting in her stomach. When she entered Nathan's private room, she barely recognized him. Gone was the confident, arrogant CEO. In his place lay a bruised and bandaged man, his face pale, his body hooked up to IVs. The moment she stepped closer, he looked up, his eyes glassy with pain. With a trembling hand, he reached for her. "I didn't know who else to call," he whispered, his voice hoarse. Sophia stood rigid, memories of their last argument swirling through her mind. She had expected anger to flare. Instead, she felt strangely calm. Nathan admitted that he had been driving recklessly. A major deal had collapsed, exposing cracks in his company's foundation. Overwhelmed by the looming prospect of failure, he had spiraled, taking a turn too fast, too aggressively. "All my life, I chased success because I thought winning was everything," he murmured, his voice laced with regret. "I lost sight of what mattered, including you and our child." His apology spilled out, raw, unsteady, filled with the kind of vulnerability she had never seen in him before. Sophia remained cautious. Words alone wouldn't erase the pain he had caused her. And yet, she couldn't deny the pang of empathy that stirred in her chest. She had once loved this man, and now he lay before her, broken in more ways than one. Nathan's remorse lingered in her thoughts long after she left the hospital. She wrestled with a storm of emotions, the anger she had carried for months, the faint compassion for a man who had lost himself to ambition, and the lingering fear that this, too, might be manipulation. But for the first time, a sense of relief took hold. Maybe the ghost of her past was finally at rest. And maybe, just maybe, there was hope for a future where they could co-parent without war. Over the following weeks, the legal landscape shifted. Unexpectedly, Nathan's attorneys filed an amended statement. They relinquished demands for joint custody. Instead, they requested visitation rights, at Sophia's discretion. And the financial support? It was placed into a trust, left entirely in her control. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing to a step in the right direction. Charlotte reviewed the documents, noting with guarded optimism that Nathan's change of heart seemed sincere. Sophia felt a strange mix of gratitude and sadness as she read over the amended agreement. She remembered the dreams she had once shared with him, of building a life together, of raising a child in a home filled with love and stability. She knew better than to trust his words blindly, but she also believed that her child deserved the possibility of knowing its father, if Nathan was truly committed to change. And so, the shadow of a long and bitter legal battle finally began to fade, granting Sophia room to breathe. Her days soon filled with finalizing the nursery, attending childbirth classes, and balancing her work at the Historical Society. Through it all, Alexander became a fixture in her life, an unwavering source of comfort. He was there when she struggled to assemble the crib, fumbling with screws and instructions. He was there when she burst into unexpected tears over a heartfelt commercial, her pregnancy hormones turning her emotions inside out. He even joined her on late-night grocery runs to satisfy her most absurd cravings. And with each shared moment, Sophia realized she was growing closer to a kind of love she had never experienced before. One built on trust, on empathy, on a genuine desire to walk side by side. Then, on a mild spring afternoon, everything changed. A sharp pain seized Sophia, stealing her breath. She clutched the edge of the kitchen counter, gasping. Alexander, who happened to be over, reacted instantly. Without hesitation, he helped her into the car, grabbing the pre-packed hospital bag as they rushed to the emergency room. The hours blurred into a haze of pain, determination, and exhaustion. And through it all, Alexander never left her side. He offered her ice chips, whispered words of encouragement, and squeezed her hand through every unbearable contraction. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a piercing cry filled the room. A nurse placed a tiny, wailing bundle into Sophia's trembling arms, a baby girl with a shock of dark hair. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she whispered her daughter's name, Lillian. Instant, overwhelming, all-consuming love swelled inside her. The days that followed were a whirlwind of exhaustion and wonder. Every hiccup, every yawn, every tiny squeak from Lily filled Sophia with awe. Visits trickled in gently. Olivia arrived first, carrying pastel balloons and an entire bag of newborn essentials. Then came Nathan. His arm was still in a cast, and he stood at a careful distance, uncertainty written all over his face. Sophia remained protective, but when she saw the way he looked at Lily, how his breath caught as he reached out, almost afraid to touch her tiny fingers, she allowed him a cautious glimpse into their daughter's life. Unsure if he would ever truly follow through on his promises to change. Alexander, on the other hand, was a constant. He and Sophia marveled over every coo, every sleepy stretch, every expression Lily made. And as the days passed, one thing became increasingly clear. This was the family Sophia never knew she could have. Lily fussed, and Alexander paced the hospital corridor, gently rocking her in his arms. Whenever Sophia felt overwhelmed, her body aching, her emotions in turmoil, Alexander was there, quiet, steady. A reminder that she wasn't alone. She realized then that what was growing between them wasn't fleeting infatuation. It was something deeper, something real. A connection built on trust, shared dreams, and unwavering support. Sophia was discharged from the hospital with cautious optimism. Nathan, still recovering from his accident, followed through on establishing a formal trust fund for Lily. He respected Sophia's boundaries regarding visitation, and though she remained wary, she acknowledged that he was making an effort. She couldn't predict how their relationship as co-parents would evolve, but she hoped that Lily's presence might push Nathan toward a more genuine, humbler path. With the legal battles behind her and Lily's birth marking a fresh start, Sophia finally felt like she could breathe again. She returned to her apartment, now overflowing with baby supplies. Those sleepless nights blurred together, she met each day with renewed purpose. Balancing her part-time research job, her freelance writing, and Lily's constant needs tested her limits. But she discovered a resilience within herself that she had never known before. And through it all, Alexander remained a patient, unwavering presence. She watched how he handled Lily with care, always supporting her tiny head, his voice low and soothing whenever she fussed. He never hesitated to step in, not just for Lily, but for her. One day, Nathan came for a brief visit. Sophia watched as he held Lily in his arms, his movements hesitant, his breath shaky. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes that she hadn't before: awe. And though she would always remain protective, she silently acknowledged the complicated bond that would always exist between them. No matter what had happened in the past, Lily's well-being would always be the center of every decision she made. About a month after Lily's birth, on a crisp evening, Alexander surprised Sophia with a quiet dinner at his stately home in Lincoln Park. The brownstone's interior was warm and inviting, a blend of antique wood, rich furnishings, and modern art. As Lily slept soundly in a nearby cradle, they shared dinner by the soft glow of the fireplace. Then, after a moment of quiet conversation, Alexander stood. "Wait here," he said gently before disappearing into another room. When he returned, he held a small velvet box in his hands. Kneeling before her, he opened it, revealing a delicate, timeless ring. Sophia's breath caught. Her eyes burned with unshed tears even before he spoke. "I love you, Sophia," Alexander said, his voice steady yet laced with emotion. "I can't imagine my life without you, or without Lily." A pause. "Will you marry me?" A torrent of emotions crashed over her: relief, gratitude, and a love so deep it nearly stole her breath. She could only nod before whispering a tearful yes. As Alexander slid the ring onto her finger, Sophia thought of the broken woman she had once been, the one who had fled a penthouse with nothing but a suitcase and a shattered heart. That memory stood in stark contrast to the woman she had become, the woman who had found strength in heartbreak, the woman who had built a new life, not just for herself, but for her daughter, and the woman who, for the first time in a long time, truly believed in love again. She was now a mother to a beautiful baby girl, soon to be the wife of a man who valued her well-being above all else. In that moment, Sophia's journey crystallized into something she had never thought possible. The heartbreak she had endured had not broken her. It had sharpened her, teaching her how to stand her ground, how to demand the respect she deserved. The baby she had carried through her darkest hours had become the brightest love of her life. And the billionaire who had appeared on a cold winter afternoon, unexpected and entirely out of place in her world, had turned out to be the partner she never knew she needed. This was not the ending she had once envisioned when she stood at the altar with Nathan, but it was a new beginning. One built on genuine partnership, mutual respect, and a home founded on love, not wealth or power, but something real. Sophia woke to the delicate sound of birdsong drifting through the open window of Alexander's brownstone in Lincoln Park. Sunlight skimmed across the hardwood floors, illuminating dust motes that danced in the stillness. It had been only a month since she had brought Lily home from the hospital, yet her life had already fallen into a tender, new rhythm. Mornings were spent nursing Lily in a cozy armchair by the window, marveling at her tiny fingers and wide, curious eyes. Afternoons found her balancing freelance assignments and part-time work at the Historical Society, and evenings belonged to Alexander, whether he was helping her prepare dinner or reading softly to Lily until she dozed off in his arms. Now, though, the house buzzed with a different kind of energy. Preparations for their wedding were in full swing. Olivia, triumphant in her self-appointed role as unofficial wedding coordinator, had nearly every detail set in motion. From the softly lit garden where they would exchange vows to the pastel-hued peonies she insisted Sophia carry. Even the date had been chosen with care. A warm Saturday in late spring, a season that promised renewal and hope. Yet beneath all the excitement, Sophia felt the fragile undercurrent of uncertainty. It surfaced in quiet moments, late at night, when she was alone with her thoughts and memories of her first marriage crept in, uninvited. What if she was rushing into this? Was her love for Alexander strong enough, real enough, to endure whatever tests life had in store? On an afternoon meant for finalizing flower arrangements, Olivia breezed into the townhouse, arms filled with color swatches and ribbons. She dropped them onto the dining table and handed Sophia a cup of chamomile tea. "My mother always says weddings turn even the calmest people into nervous wrecks," she teased, eyeing the tiny lines of worry etched across Sophia's face. "So," she asked, her voice turning softer, "how are you really doing?" Sophia let out a slow breath, trying to put words to the swirl of emotions inside her. "I'm happy," she admitted, "more than I ever thought I could be." But happiness, she realized, could still be laced with fear. "Could be," Sophia said softly, stroking Lily's tiny hand as the baby dozed in her bassinet nearby. But after everything she had been through with Nathan, the divorce, the stress, it was hard to believe this peace wouldn't eventually shatter. Her gaze dropped to the engagement ring on her finger, the light catching on its delicate setting. Olivia noticed. "Alexander isn't Nathan," she said firmly. "He's proven that time and again. It's normal to be scared, but you don't have to let fear run the show." Sophia nodded, grateful for her friend's unwavering support. She was about to shift the conversation back to table decorations when her phone buzzed. Her breath caught. Nathan. His name flashed on the screen like an omen. Should I answer this?" she murmured, glancing at Olivia. Her friend simply shrugged, a delicate gesture that said, "This is your choice." Sophia stepped into the next room and pressed the phone to her ear. Nathan's voice was subdued, almost hesitant. "Hey, Sophia. I heard you're getting married soon." She tensed. He cleared his throat awkwardly. "I'm not calling to upset you. I wanted to say that I'm happy for you, truly." Sophia's heart thumped at the uncharacteristic vulnerability in his tone. She paused, then replied carefully, "Thank you. That means a lot." A beat of silence passed before she added, "And Nathan, if you truly want to be in Lily's life, we can work something out. Slowly." There was another pause, then he sighed, the sound heavy with something she couldn't quite place. "That's what I want too," he said, emotion threading through his voice. For a brief moment, she believed him. But then he hesitated. "There's something else," he admitted. "My board at Carter Holdings is pressing me to host a major corporate event next month. Some kind of restructuring announcement. They want a public show of unity between me and my family." Sophia's stomach twisted. "They're hinting that you and Lily should be there, to ease investor concerns." And just like that, the sincerity she had felt a moment ago shattered. Her anger flared. "That's not my responsibility," she said, her voice sharp. "We're not props for your PR." "I know," Nathan said quickly. "I even told them no, but they're persistent, and I wanted to warn you, in case this leaks to the press." He hesitated again. "If it does, I'll do everything in my power to shield you." Sophia swallowed hard, her throat tightening. For once, he didn't sound like the ruthless businessman she had fought against for so long. He just sounded tired. Still, she wasn't sure if she could afford to believe him. But she answered truthfully anyway. "Thank you." She managed a quiet, "I appreciate the heads up, and I'm glad you're keeping your word." When the call ended, Sophia felt equal parts relief and unease. Nathan's progress seemed genuine, but his world of corporate maneuvering still felt too close for comfort. She wanted no part in another media spectacle, especially with Lily so young and her wedding on the horizon. The next day, over a quick lunch, she carefully recounted the phone call to Alexander. To her surprise, he was calm. "We expected some drama," he said with a wry smile. "Corporate shakeups can get messy, especially in Nathan's world. But I'll do whatever it takes to keep you and Lily out of the crossfire." Sophia exhaled, resting her head against his shoulder. A wave of gratitude washed over her. His steady support was a salve against the fears that had threatened to unravel her. As the wedding day drew closer, the whirlwind of last-minute details threatened to overwhelm Sophia's every waking moment. Yet, each time doubt flickered in the back of her mind, she reminded herself of three things. Alexander's unwavering presence, the gentle weight of Lily in her arms, Olivia's steadfast encouragement. She reminded herself that joy, too, was a possibility, that she deserved this new beginning, that this moment, untarnished by the past, was hers to embrace. Little did she know, a final test of her conviction still lay ahead, one that would come from an unexpected corner of her life. But for now, the world felt bathed in sunlight, and hope bloomed steadily in her chest. The future was hers, if only she dared to believe in it. Thank you for joining Sophia on her unforgettable journey through heartbreak, resilience, and the power of new beginnings. From the moment she signed those divorce papers to the day she found lasting love, her story reminds us that even the darkest trials can lead to the brightest dawn. In facing betrayal and legal battles, she discovered something far more powerful: her own strength. Her unexpected alliance with Alexander not only helped her stand against the ghosts of her past, but also proved that a compassionate, genuine heart can heal even the deepest wounds. If Sophia's story resonated with you, if it inspired you, moved you, or reminded you of your own strength, please like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more heart-stirring stories. Thank you for watching.